Hello, my friends. Welcome to the metal shop. New project day here. And I just now, literally just a minute or two ago, thought of a name for this project, and I'm going to call it the BrassoCaster. Everything that I can possibly install on this guitar that's made of brass, I will install it. Literally everything. Originally, this guitar was going to get that really nice Stars Tunematic bridge that I ended up putting on the Danger Radiation project, but I kind of shifted gears. Anyway, that's why I bought the hardtail, so that I could mount the Tunematic to it. This is just an inexpensive body from Guitar Fetish with a relic job, which is, it's okay. It is down to bare wood here. I'll probably hit it with some True Oil in this spot here and maybe a little bit here. It's all right. You can see seam lines. It doesn't really matter. It's a relic body. I have some brass inserts there, ferrules there. This is just an inexpensive eBay neck, roasted maple. Smells like maple syrup. I had this this logo. I looked through my whole envelope of logos there, and this is actually a sticker, which was handy. I didn't really feel like putting on a decal or a decal and you know, clear coating and doing all that. Got the brass nut. That's a YJM, a Fender Yngwie Malmsteen nut already installed. Threw that on there. I am going to have to, let's see if we can flip this around here. I'm going to have to install the Kahler locking clamp. And what Kahler wants you to do is, I got something wrong with the, sorry. There's like a little crease or something in there, kind of bugging me. They want you to install that like flatwise like this. But if you can see, that's going to interfere with the tuner. It's not really going to work. I think I've seen these installed like this dating way back to the 80s. I think it will install like this just fine, provided that it's low enough that the strings, you know, don't hit the leading edge here. I've got it marked out. And they did even include a couple of shims. Kahler did when you buy a locking clamp from them. I didn't buy this one. This is a vintage one. But this little spacer here has a curved bottom. It doesn't quite match this, but I think when we crank these screws down, it will conform to that surface there. So we've got to do that. And the big operation that we're going to do, as you probably figured out by now, is this is going to get a Kahler trim. I bought a really nice old gold one. I've already taken it apart here. I've removed the cam from it for locating purposes. And these were designed just like the Floyd Rose. The Floyd Rose was designed to retrofit a Stratocaster. The Kahler was designed to retrofit a Stratocaster. And these two holes here would actually line up with your holes for your 6-hole trim. You're supposed to be able to bolt this right down. Now, Kahler has some very, very detailed instructions here, written no doubt by engineers and you know, technical you know, specs. It's very complicated, but what they don't give you here is just a simple measurement. What I'd like to know is the measurement from the nut to the center line of the route. They don't give you that. Figure it out. Figure it out from, you know, your drafting class, from your whatever. If you're some kind of friggin' rocket scientist or something, I guess you can figure that out. They give you from obviously you're going to need to figure your center line. They give you measurements to the screw holes, and they want you to factor off the screw holes. And to me, that's backwards, really the simplest measurement. Okay, we'll have a center line. We have your scale length line. Measure, those are 2 points. That's all you need, 2 points. Give me the specs for the the routing off of those 2 points. Don't make this so complicated that I have to figure from the mounting holes and then add and subtract and do all these measurements. So what I've done is, and I'm going to get some measurements here, some basic measurements here with the blue tape like I normally do. I bought a Strat routing template, which will, a nice clear template. I bought a Music Lily, which is half the price of StewMac, FYI. So I'll be able to locate the 6 mounting holes, and then I can go from there and ensure that this thing is in exactly the right place. All right, so we'll go to the time lapse. You can't do this stuff without the neck installed. You got to install the neck. You can't just measure on a body. Like I said, blue tape, straight edge, a nice, I actually have a nicer big metal straight edge, but my old trusty yardstick, my wooden yardstick here hasn't failed me, and I've done many installations with the old wooden yardstick. So anyway, let's go to black, shows everything. Let's go to the time lapse, get some critical measurements made, and get the Kaler fitted to this thing. All right, cool. All right, well, that's enough for tonight. It's getting late and tough to tell in the time lapse, but I broke a screw, and now I see why Kaler gives you 5 screws. I pre-drilled the holes, and I used this is just Blistex, but I use this because it's primarily wax. I waxed all of the screws so that they would go in easily, but I did use my DeWalt gyroscopic driver, which is very gentle, but it does have a lot of torque. Should have done it by hand, but you know, whatever, hindsight. Hey, I just wanted to interject real quickly here. If I hadn't used that shim, that rounded shim there in the installation of this Kaler locking clamp, when I broke that screw and took it all apart, that shim is what allowed me that little bit of screw sticking up, gave me just that little bit, so I was able to remove it. If I hadn't installed that shim, that thing never would have come out. Pretty fortuitous. That's all. You can now resume your regular programming. Did get that mounted. I think I'm in pretty good shape for lining up the Kaler here. And what I found was, I'm confident I could route this and it would be fine right now, because it looks to me like these indents here are even with the saddles, okay? I measured this saddle and this saddle. They're both from the nut. I measured from the nut. They're both exactly 25.5 inches, which is going to be our scale. And that's the 25.5 inch line. I lined it up to that. I am going to verify with that Strat template, which should be arriving tomorrow. I also aligned it with the center line. I made sure that these, now there's a lot of movement in the Kaler from side to side, so I made sure that these were the same distance from side to side, and they were. And I also measured from the side of the neck to the saddles, and the space was equidistant. So, like I said, I'm convinced with just these handful of rudimentary measurements, I could route this and it would sit in place the way it's supposed to and intonate. But I'm going to get, like I said, I'm going to get that Strat template and just verify before I route this thing, okay? Let's set this aside. I did want to show you this. This is relic pick guard I had from Hudson. Unique pick guards there in the UK. I did have this custom ordered. It's very expensive. Close to $200 or $200. This is where I obtain all of my fast Eddie Clark brass pick guards these days, is from Hudson Unique in the UK. Check them out. They're on Reverb. They're fantastic. It's expensive, but it's worth it. This thing is thick. It's rock solid. These are Duncan distortions out of a San Dimas Pro mod that has some unique switching. If you guys remember that, they both have push-pulls. And I think one of them bypasses the circuit completely and goes, so it's like bypasses everything. It's like straight from your input, from your output jack, straight from the output jack to the pickups. You do have a volume, but it bypasses everything else. And I believe the other one is a splitter. Yeah, I can see the red and the white Duncan wires going to this switch, so that is a splitter. So there's kind of a sort of, I got really nice hand-turned brass Charvel knobs. I got a brass switch tip. This isn't, the way this three-way switches isn't giving me the warm and fuzzy compared to the nice Oak Grigsby switches or the CTR. I can't remember who makes the really nicest switches. I think it's something like that. It's not CTS, but it's another company with initials and it begins with C. CRT, something like that. But I had this cut for a Floyd, so it should give me plenty of room for the Kaler. Although it's looking, that's okay. Doesn't matter if it doesn't. We'll buzz this thing off. So there's kind of a sneak preview of what we're going to be looking like there. And this is supposed to look like a super old school vibe guitar, looking like that you took you know, a 70s, a late 60s, early 70s Strat 70s, so you get the big headstock. You modified it in the 80s and you dropped a Kaler on it and put some humbuckers in it and a brass pick guard. Total old school vibe is what I'm going for, and I'm digging the look of it so far. Let's move that out of the way. This black scratches really easily. It's a good thing it's a relic finish here. Moving the Kaler around really scratched it up. Like I said, that looks the part right there. That looks amazing. You know, just totally 80s having a Kaler. And I was right. Screwing this down, that curved bottom, whatever you want to call it, that little shim, that spacer, totally conformed and took up the space there. And I was a little worried because it sat a little bit high, but once I screwed it down, it really, you know, the strings are going to go right over it. It won't need any string trees, though I may still put a string tree on there just to maintain the look of a modified guitar. I have one nice Charvel round string tree left. I don't know if I'll use that or I'll use something else. I wish there was a source for the Charvel round string trees. I get them from Frets on the Net, but his are very expensive, very cost prohibitive, and they're fantastic parts. I love that guy. I talk about him all the time, but you know, I can't be doing, you know, $35, $40 for a string tree that I don't really even need. So anyway, we'll stop right there, and once I have that other template, we'll get this thing routed. Thanks for listening to me yammer on. All right, well, I think I finally got this thing where I want it to be, and I have drilled the mounting holes. So I did buy a traditional Strat, a vintage trem template made by Music Lily, and it's probably double the thickness that it needs to be, which would actually be nice when it comes time for routing. To get the critical measurement and have the template from with the center line to the center line of your screws, whether it be the 6 screw setup or in this case, for the Wilkinson or the Goto, same exact spacing. They're interchangeable, if that makes sense. So what they want you to do for this is you find your center line, and there's a center line on your template, and you measure back from the nut 25 1/4 inches, okay? And that puts us somewhere in that range right there. All right. I mean, I'm just going to guesstimate this for the purposes of the video. 25 1/4. Now, the problem is I don't see how. So I make a couple marks there, 25 1/4. And now these holes here are supposed to line up to these holes and locate you. All right. So if I mounted this here at the 25 1/4 mark, now we know if you've ever intonated a guitar, you've ever built a guitar, your low E string is going to be roughly your scale length at 25 1/2. Are you seeing what I'm seeing here? 25 1/2 is way up here. So let's adjust this saddle. I've got it loose to get to 25 1/2. That is actually, it's a little too far. Let's try that. That's about 25 1/2, okay? And you've got a little bit more room of travel on that saddle. Okay, problem being, this one's 25 1/2. We know this one's going to be further up. This one's going to be even further up than that. We're out of travel. There's absolutely no way that you mount this at 25 1/4, center line to your screws, and this trem will intonate. Absolutely no way humanly possible. Now, I have to say, the Kahler sheets that I'm using they're dated 2011, which is about 30 years after the Kahler came out. So maybe that's for the newer style trems, give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe some of the dimensions are changed. So what I did was I took a critical measurement off of there, and sorry to get so technical, but what they want is they want 4 millimeters of movement of your saddles in this direction, 4 millimeters of movement of your saddles in this direction from your scale length. So that is what I finally did. I got my 25 1/2 mark, and I made a line 4 millimeters in this direction, 4 millimeters in that direction, and that is where I mounted that thing. And now this thing will intonate. All right. So giant pain. Kahler does not make it easy. Don't go by that 25 1/4. If you have a Strat and you bolt this on one of these early trems, it's not going to intonate. It won't. I just don't see how they did it. So I've got it marked where we need to route, and it's going to be it's approximately 7/8 of an inch depth, and the bulk of it here, and exactly 1/2 inch in this little cove here. If you've ever looked at any guitar that came with a Kahler, a BC Rich, or an old Jackson, or a Hamer, whatever from back in the day, Hamer didn't use Kahlers that much. No, they did. They would just route this all to one depth, just to be easier. I've scored this with an X-Acto knife, so I should be able to do this. It's not going to be easy. I am going to go to the drill press first. I'm not going to, and actually, you know what? Maybe I won't do the drill press. Maybe I'll do it right here, and I'll give you a little bit of a time lapse. I have a drill bit taped off, and I'm going to get my corners drilled here just to take it a little bit easier on the router. You don't want to try and route every bit of that wood away with a hand router. You want to try and remove some material with a drill. Yeah, you can see there's some little chipping there. That's because that's what I wanted. I've got the clear coat scored there. So yeah, we'll go to time lapse. We'll get a few holes drilled, and then we'll take this down into the metal shop, basement of metal shop, and get this thing finished, routed out. Cool. All right, we appear to be in pretty good shape here. If you saw, what I did was I drilled the entire route for the 1/2 inch depth. I drilled this little cutout here, 1/2 inch, drilled all of this, or routed all of this to 1/2 inch, just connecting the dots between the drill holes that I made, and that worked a lot nicer. The router, the hand router, it's not designed to move mass quantities of wood. I have found it can do it, but it gets hot, it smokes, it likes to do this instead. If you can, drill your corners and drill out a lot of the field and then just connect the dots with the route. I did freehand it because the Kaler is going to cover it all up completely. Came out very well. I did put some tape on just to stop the router. This body, even though it's pre-reliced, is very, very susceptible to scratches. So I'm pretty happy with how that came out. I think it's a hair smaller than Kaler wants you to make the route. They make it way too big. It's way too close to the screws, in my opinion. So I will do some test fitting. We'll take this back to the workbench. We will do some test fitting. And if it's all good, I'm going to paint this black with shielding paint just because it's easy with a brush. It doesn't need shielding paint in there. Oh, I do need to drill for a ground wire. No ground wire provisions here, so I do need to drill, you know, the shortest distance, I guess. Maybe I could go actually into here. I'm going to do something on an angle and get a ground wire into there that I can roll up under the bridge. But very happy with how that came out. Let's go up to the workbench. All right, so I am going to end here. Video's getting a little long. Got it all shielding painted. I'm just waiting for it to dry at this point. You'll notice in the time lapse, I did not paint the bottom of this control cavity here. And what I've been running into is some of these, this is a 5-way switch, and this one actually has the little tangs, or the little wire posts are nicely bent over. But sometimes if they're not, they'll touch the bottom, and if it's painted with shielding paint, they'll short out. This is quite tall, and this assembly has push-pull pots that also stick way down, and there's grounding on the back of these. I'm going to need to do some wire management in here. Anyway, next time you get a sneak peek. We'll get to final assembly, and I will show you one little sneak peek here. I have these really cool brass Strat buttons. For the life, I've had these in the guitar parts drawer for like 20 years. I can't for the life of me remember what guitar I took these off of, but to me, these look handmade. Someone turned these on a lathe, and the wood screws, the brass wood screws in here fit perfectly. I added the felt washers, but it just came to me. I was thinking about these guitars. I went to sleep one night, and I was like, oh, eureka! I have the perfect Strat buttons for this guitar that someone custom whittled out of brass. Never seen another set like this. They're very cool. Excited to put these on. It just goes, this one at the center line, and you split the distance in the body halfway. And the other one here, I just kind of eyeball at the apex of that curve. So anyway, yeah, next time we'll get to final assembly and stringing this thing up and seeing how we did, if we made a great guitar or not, because it is a crapshoot. So as always, my friends, thank you so much for watching. Truly do appreciate your support. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think of the BrassoCaster, as I've called it. Have I captured a good old school feel like I'm trying for? Please subscribe if you're new to the channel. Tons of great content. Hit me up in the comments, said that. Give me the old thumbs up, please. Share the video with your friends if they enjoy this type of guitar nerd type of content. All right? Cool. Take care, my friends. BrassoCaster, Part 1.